In previous videos, we've shown how you can use drop-down boxes to edit the value in a form control, to edit the value in the state field and also the city field. And we also showed how you can make the city field into a cascading drop-down so that the choices for the city field are based on the current selection in the state field. In this video, we're going to show how, instead of using drop-down boxes for the editor, you can use a list control for the editor. And again, we're going to have a single list control editor and then share that among both the state field and the city field. So you can see that when we click on John, we open up just a regular text box editor. The same thing is true of last name. And but when we get to state, you can see we have a list control for our editor, and as soon as I make a change to the state, you'll see that the city field, which is currently Boston, is going to get set to blank because Boston is not a city, a valid city in California. And then when I click on the city field, I get another list, and this list is populated with the cities for the current selection of the state, which is California. So if I go there and change this now to New York and then click on the city field, you can see now I get the cities in New York, and then I can go ahead and click on city there and then hit the save value, and then the record gets committed back to the list, which is the data source. So we've now switched from using drop-down controls in our editor to using list controls in our editor. So if we go back to design mode here, we can see that inside this editor set we now have editor number 3 from there to there, and that uses a list control. And if we go to our form, we can see that both the city and the state field are both configured to use editor number 3 as their editor. In other words, both city and state are sharing the same list control editor, but the choices in the list are dynamically populated for the appropriate fields, so both city and state. So let's go now take a look at some of the settings that we've added to the city field. So when the user makes a selection in the state field, we want to blank out the current value in the city field. But when the user makes a selection in the city field, there's nothing that we want to automatically blank out. So let's go take a look here at the user-defined settings for city. So we can see here that the field name is city, but the fields to blank is just nothing, so there's nothing to blank out. On the other hand, when the user makes a selection in the state field, the settings here specify that the field name is city and that the fields to blank is an array that in this case only has one item in it, so it has city. So when the user makes a selection in the state field, we want to blank out the value in the city field, but we could blank out the value in a whole bunch of fields by just adding those choices to the array. So then you can see also that, of course, as mentioned, we've set the editor for both city and state to editor number 3, which is our list control. And then we need to dynamically populate the list with the choices when the user taps on the field. So let's go take a look now at the list control itself. So we've set the list control here to just be static data, and we haven't actually defined any data at all other than just the first row here, which represents the field name. So we basically are expecting data with a field called list data in camel case like that, and then you can see we've gone to the list layout and we've specified that this list has a single column called list data, and we've also gone and we've turned off column headings. So there's a property in here called column headings. Let's just go find it quickly. Let's go, I think it might be called titles, show column titles, which you can see has been turned off. So this is how the list itself has been configured, and we'll get back in a little while to the on-click event to see what's going on there. So let's pause now and pick this up in the next video. So we're continuing to look now at how the list control was configured as an editor, and the on-click event has a bunch of code in it that we're not going to go through right now, but I'm just going to mention that this is the code that commits the choice in the list control back to the form, and we'll discuss how we got this code a little bit later. So then you can see that in the editor itself, in the set value in editor, we're basically saying here, am I basically editing the state field, or am I editing the city field? And we know that by looking inside the settings object and looking at the field name property, which was one of the properties that we set in the FormView editor. We basically created a user-defined property called FieldName, which we set. So we actually, instead of creating our own property called FieldName, we could actually have used a built-in, this actually should have been settings. We could have used a built-in property called star A5 column, but we explicitly specified that field name was a property and it had a value of either state or city. And then if you refer back to the video on cascading drop-down controls, you'll see that in that video we defined two functions, get states and get cities, that return the list of states and return a list of cities for a particular state. So these values that are returned by these two functions are just an array of values. So choices at this point is an array, but in order to populate the list we need to create an array of objects, with each object having a property called list data, because that's the name of the field that we specified. So after we get the choices, we create an empty array called underbar D, and then we loop over all of the items in the choices array, and we push an object that has a property called list data. So now that we have underbar D as an array of objects, we're ready to populate the list. So the next thing that we do is we get a pointer here to the list control itself. Then we call the lists populate method, passing in the data that we want to populate it with. And then finally we call the refresh method, because the list needs to be refreshed since it's being it was initially hidden and now it's being shown. And when you show a list that's initially hidden, it's a good idea to refresh it. So this is how we populate the list when the user clicks on the item. And then you can see here in the get value from list, before we return the value from the list, we first go through all of the fields to blank and we blank them out. So I just want to also, before we discuss this code here, I want to just mention that this list itself over here has been configured to return the value of the list data field. So basically this list only has a single field called list data, and we've said that the return value of the field isn't of the list is list data. That means that we can use set value and get value on this list control to set the current row in the list and to retrieve the current row in the list. So getting back here to the get value. So basically this here is going to return the value of the list data field in the current row that was selected. And you can see here we basically are going to loop over all of the fields in the fields to blank array and create an empty array with of the same length as fields to blank. So fields to blank has 3 entries in it. This is going to be an array with 3 items that are where each item is a null value. And then we just simply call the FormView update method, and we set all of these fields to just a blank data. So let's pause now and pick this up in the next video. So we're continuing now to discuss how to create cascading list control editors, and we're looking at the FormView update method, which updates the form view, and this method basically takes the name of the form that you want to update, the list of the fields that you want to update, and then an array of data with which you want to update these fields. So the actual form name, which you can see here, this form view is actually called FormView underbar 1, we can basically either hard code that, or we can refer to another one of the built-in settings properties, which is star A5 form. So star A5 forms is another way of just simply getting this value here, FormView underbar 1. So so this code over here, this is basically going to blank out the values of all the fields that we specified need to be blanked out when the user makes a selection from the list. And in the case of the state field, we're going to be blanking out the values, the value in the city field. So finally, when we created this editor, we started out with a predefined editor text box control here, which had a save button. In fact, we still haven't deleted the save button. We could go ahead and delete it. But we took the code that's on the save buttons on click event. We just copied this code to the clipboard, and then we went back to the list over here, and we went into the lists on click event, and we just pasted that code in. So basically, whenever the user clicks on a different row in the list, that's going to save that selection back to the form, which will cause the form itself to go dirty. So let's go ahead quickly and run that and see that in action. So click on a row, click on the state field, and you can see we still haven't deleted the save and cancel buttons, which we should do. But now when I click on, say, New York, this selection is automatically committed back to the form, and then the form goes dirty over here. So if I go ahead and hit the save button now, this form is going to get committed back into the data source. But since I didn't select a city, now that's blank, so I can go there and choose New York and then hit save, and so now we've basically got that back. So what we've shown in this video is how editors can be, how list controls can be used as editors, and we've shown how a single editor with one list control can be reused for many different controls on the form by just dynamically populating that list control with the appropriate choices. Thanks very much for watching.